to his feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect. Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Hello and welcome to the Chase Down Podcast. The podcast is presented by Fubo TV. Watch over 100 channels of live sports and TV for half the cost of cable. There's no contract. There's no commitment. Try free at FuboTV.com. The Cleveland Cavaliers have swept the Golden State Warriors with a 118 to 110. I almost forgot the score, but I didn't. I didn't, guys. And we do not have Justin Rowan on the pod. He was being a debaucherous fool at a Winnipeg Bombers game. So instead, we are joined by its Cavaliers' Mack Perry. How you doing, Mac?
Man, Carter, I think, honestly, I may have died and woken up in an alternate reality because we're talking about sweeps. We're talking about the Warriors. We just swept the Warriors, man. I mean, we literally sat up here last time out, right? And we're talking heavily about how we hadn't beat this team for about 6-7 years, all things considered. And we just swept them within a couple of games. So
was this our first? Good, was this our first win in Golden State since Game 7?
I think so.
Whew. I mean, like, it was funny. I was tweeting some. I was just kind of live tweeting the game, and someone got in my mentions talking about Evans' offensive game. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, he had a rough game up to that point, but, like, just word to the wise, we're up 12 in Golden State. Like, that doesn't happen for the Cavaliers. So the fact that they came out with yet another win, and we felt this way after the last game, hosting Golden State. We go, okay, now they figured it out, and then they backslid against OKC, but it kind of feels like they regained things. I do think it's a good matchup for them. Their size, Golden State's lack of rim pressure out in the non-Jonathan Kuminga division. There are a lot of things that work really, really well about this matchup for the Cavs, but it is. I still don't think you can at any point disregard the fact that the Cavs have swept the season series with the Warriors.
I mean, we this is one we should definitely feel good about. You know, we didn't have Isaac Okoro out there, one of our best point of attack defender, and he wasn't out there. And you just kind of felt like Steph Curry, for all the wizardry he typically brings to the table, it just didn't matter tonight. I mean, one of the things that was really, really, really messing with me in tonight's matchup, I got to say, is just rebounding, right? We have this size advantage. It's a good matchup, like you said, but 55 to 45 on the glass. And it just didn't even matter because Cleveland held Golden State to 41% from the field and 34% from 3-point distance. So I walked away with this one feeling pretty damn good just because of the fact that if you can do this without your best point of attack defender, you should be able to replicate this. But again, we've seen this team. They, for some reason, and Carter, I don't know if it's just me, but we really seem to get up defensively for this Warriors team. What is it, man?
Well, I do think that some of it is the matchup. Some of it is the styles make fights. Like, you can switch Mobley and Allen out on these guys because their bigs like Draymond, like Looney, are not like punish you type of bigs. Wiggins hasn't really, been himself in either of the matchups in terms of him playing at his best, which, kind of is himself, but you get what I'm saying. I think that they're able to switch with impunity. I think the Cavs' defensive principles are really, really strong. And, you look at a guy like Darius, who the last couple years is rated out as an above average defender, and it's not because his physical tools are so good. It's because he just doesn't mess up. And, like, so much about about guarding the Warriors is just don't mess up, and hold still, be in the right spot at the right time because they need to pass the ball so much to generate good looks. And the Cavs just, it was a steal fest. The Warriors had 20 turnovers, which is like, it's just funny that darn near 10 years into this thing, the recipe to beat the Warriors is still just get them to hand you the ball a lot.
I mean, we're talking, this is a game in which, we had just turned the ball over 18 times, if I'm not mistaken, against OKC, and basically handed the game to him. And the Cavs in that first half, they seemed to play under control, especially Darius Garland, who I kind of want to talk about a little bit, just because I felt like he kind of refocused and recentered himself tonight, man. So I do have to ask you this, just because we've seen so much scrutiny in regards to Garland, and some of it is warranted, right? He has been rather careless with the basketball to begin the season, but based upon his start to the year, were you at least a little concerned about things in his regard?
Definitely, I was concerned. I was concerned about the 3-point volume, which, he took 12 threes per 36 in preseason, and then it just went right back down. Once regular season started, obviously the hammy seemed to be bothering him. I still am kind of the uneducated opinion that it still is. I mean, there have been a couple fast break opportunities where I think last year he would dunk him, and even this year he was like, he goes up to dunk him and then he has to lay it in because he's not getting all the way up there. And the turnovers have been uncharacteristic. I do think this game was encouraging for a couple reasons. One, I just thought his scoring game was much more well-rounded. He hit 3 threes. He was finishing with really, really good angles. I thought the turnovers still stunk. Still a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, which you can't do that. I felt like as a scorer, he was much more decisive and got himself into less no-win situations. I just think he's still been a little careless on the other end. But if I can do some real fan mathing, Mac, I would say that the 5 steals kind of make up for the 4 turnovers. So really, if you do steals plus assists minus turnovers, he's plus 5. That's fan math at its worst. But I don't know. I thought he played a helpful offensive game. I thought he did a nice job on Steph on defense. So not super grumpy with his outing, though the turnovers were frustrating. I don't know. How did you feel encouraged by tonight?
I honestly did. And to me, I don't know if the turnovers are more so him just trying to get out of his own way, or if it's just carelessness with the basketball, or if it's just bad timing and trying to figure out where some of these guys are supposed to be at. Because in my opinion, I still think, with this starting 5, you are still trying to figure out how to best utilize guys like Mack Strus out in the perimeter. You're still trying to figure out what the lanes are going to look like inside, because there is a little bit more space out there. And so some of these turnovers that we've seen from him over these last couple of games, very, very sloppy passing. I didn't necessarily see that tonight. I mean, there was a couple, right? There's a couple
no chancers, a couple no chance rim attacks. And that's the stuff that he's really got to clean up. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're good. Yeah, I completely agree in that regard. And I think that will occur as the season goes on. I do think there is some excuse built in with the hammy. I kind of give that to him, but at the same time, I did feel encouraged about it, especially with the 3-ball dropping, because I think in the last matchup with Golden State, the 3-ball just was non-existent, but he was able to salvage that because he was able to attack inside and draw a ton of fouls.
Oh, look who's in the chat. Justin Rowan saying that 5 threes is a step in the right direction, but I need more. This guy on his day off, hanging out in the chat. Gotta respect it. I do want to ask about the player that I really wanted to talk about. I have 2 guys on the fun side of the conversation I really want to hit on from tonight's game. And you teed it up a little bit in terms of integrating Strus. But man, this guy is obviously the 3 hasn't really been there thus far this season. Are you surprised at the degree to which he is stat stuffing? He had 16, 8, and 4 tonight. And the rebounding and passing has been really, really eye-opening. And I think it's important to note that as much as the Cavs have kind of messaged that hey, he's not just a shooter. He's not just a shooter. He does all these other things. You go look at his stats from past seasons. His highest career rebounding average was 5.2. Or I'm sorry, 3.2. He's averaging 5.9 going into tonight and pulled in 8 more. His highest assists was 3.2. I'm sorry, 2.1. He's averaging 3.3. I feel like just saying that this is who Strus always was. Like he's not just a shooter. He's able to do all this stuff. It actually might be doing a bit of a disservice to how good he's been for this Cavaliers team.
I mean, how would you categorize him? For me, watching some film on him prior to the acquisition, because that was definitely one of the guys that I had hoped the Cavaliers would go out there and acquire. And when they did, I was really happy about that. But the book on the guy was that he's a very solid movement shooter, right? And that's definitely something that we needed. We've seen how that can play out for them, especially in game 1 against Brooklyn. But again, the 3 ball is not dropping. But for me, the biggest thing with Strus, it's not just the stat sheet stuffing. It's the fact that this dude is always on the move. He's always looking to contribute in some form or fashion, and he's opening the floor up for other guys. Some of the backdoor cuts that he's had has been flat out beautiful, in my opinion. The defense has really been a positive to me, because I feel like you've started to see him take more, pride in his defensive assignments that I had seen him in years past. But yes, to answer your question, I definitely feel like, some of these stat lines you're seeing from him, 16, 8, and 4. And luckily he did have 2 or 3 from 3-point range tonight, which will definitely help the percentages a little bit. But yeah, I mean, definitely not something that I would have expected from him out of the 3.
I was expecting him to be a more well-rounded player than just a 3-point shooter, but I thought that would mostly come in the form of those intangibles, in the form of constant movement and, the sort of plays that open things up for other guys that he doesn't get a tick in the box score for. But like his box score stuffing, I mean, 3-4 assists, 6 to 8 rebounds. It kind of feels like a constant, and like I think it's part of the reason why I believe he's leading the team in minutes right now. Aside from the fact that he also has been, the healthiest of the starting group. But yeah, I've really enjoyed his effort, and I think he's also done a really, really nice job in both of these Warriors games, taking on some really tough assignments. Like Wiggins, I think, is probably thinking he's going to have a better night going against him. Steph thinks he's going to have a better night. Clay's thinking he's going to have a better night. I think he's held his own against all 3. I've just been really, really geeked with the Max Strus experience, and that's with the 3s not falling that much.
I mean, that's exactly where I'm at with him. And for, some of the assists, the ball movement that he's had, you can clearly see the chemistry that he has already built with the bigs and Jared Allen.
Mobley,
and
my goodness. He is the number 1 route to a good Evan Mobley rim attack.
Yeah, I mean, helping, it helps that he played with Bam Adebayo, who's one of the game's better passing bigs, right? And you could definitely see these two, they're developing a pretty solid chemistry, and he's doing that same thing with Jared Allen. You saw some of those plays tonight play out. I did want to ask you, just to kind of go off topic here, we've seen a lot of discourse with Dean Wade. Fan interaction in regards to him on social media seems to be all over the place. Can you just... Where are you at with Dean Wade right now? Because the stat sheet is not always kind to him. He did have 2 big 3s down the stretch in that fourth quarter, to begin the fourth quarter. He is still pulling down boards. But every time I'm logging into one of my socials, I'm constantly seeing this guy taking some flack for one reason or another. Where are you at with Dean Wade?
I've been really happy with Dean so far this season. And I think... and here's a potential take. I was going to hit on Niang near the end of the podcast because I think those minutes have been especially rough. From an on-court performance perspective, throwing out all other context, role, seniority, just straight up who's playing better, there's really no reason for Dean not to be the 8th man when the team is fully healthy ahead of Niang. I think his rebounding has been underrated because the numbers are never high. I thought he was boxing out like a demon tonight. There's a reason he led the team in rebounds and in his 17 minutes before he got fouled out. And the 3-pointer I just think is always going to be one of those things where it's like, okay, Dean is going to shoot well tonight, or Dean is not going to shoot well tonight, and it kind of feels like he's such a rhythm player on that side of the ball. But I think the rebounding numbers have consistently been improved with him on the floor. He's one of those guys where the team rebound rate is really what you want to look at as opposed to his individual rebound numbers, because a lot of times he's just clearing guys off the glass for his teammates to go get the easy board, almost letting the ball hit the floor because he's boxing out his guys so well. And
Solid
then
positioning. Yeah.
yeah, and then I think as a defender, he really is the best thing we have to throw at the apex 6'8", 6'9" wings in the league. I will say I think he got a rough whistle a couple times. I do think there are times where especially in transition where I'm like, hey buddy, you got to take a better angle on that defensively. Like Kuminga is not going to score on you. Just sprint straight to the basket. Or like if he's not going to pull from 3. Like he was giving up easy angles to Kuminga tonight, so probably not the best game to extol Dean's on-ball defense. But I think overall, he and Okoro are this team's best bet at shutting someone's water off on the perimeter in a non-switch environment for the bigs. So like, I really have been happy with his play, and like I think in a lot of ways he helped them close out this game with those 2 threes. It felt very, very meaningful to come out on an 8-2 run in the fourth after getting, your water shut off the entire third.
I mean, after the Draymond Green ejection, which completely just revitalized the Warriors, it seemed, on the offensive end, having Dean come out there to start the fourth quarter and drill back-to-back triples, man, that was definitely something that you should feel good about, right? Because for what it's worth, Dean, the shot, it's going to come and go. But he still tries hard defensively. He's still going to go out there and position himself quite well on the glass. And for him, he's just kind of a guy who's never going to get the love of the average fan, right? And so for him, I need him to have a breakout game because I'm just so dang tired of seeing this guy take so much crap. But
well, I think that's also kind of his job in a way, like
yeah,
he's gonna get tough matchups. He is not a high volume player, so his box scores are never gonna pop. But like as an 8th man in a rotation, I said this earlier, but not messing up is almost more important than excelling. And Dean just doesn't mess up. Sometimes the 3 just doesn't go, but like that's different than like actively hurting the team by being out of position or going ISO on a play you shouldn't, or just being reckless. I don't think that's his game writ large. I think he's just a very safe, dependable player, and like sometimes that matters much more than being splashy. So been super, super thrilled with Dean, a player who has been splashy, Mac. I cannot believe I am saying this, given my general take on this player's tenure thus far in Cleveland, but Caris LeVert has been my favorite Cleveland Cavalier this season.
I mean, how can he not be? I mean, I think I heard you guys say this on the last pod. He just really looks like the guy who looks cool, calm, and collected this season. One of the only guys who's been that way outside of Donovan, right? He's playing 2-way basketball. Oh my God, it's beautiful. And I think I heard him say it a little bit tonight. The defense definitely fueled the offense, right? Anytime he's out there and he is got it going, you can't help but feel good for the guy, just because what he can be. What he brings to the table. He brings a lot of playmaking to the table. Obviously, he feels comfortable in isolation sets. Was not prepared for the spot up shooting that I've seen out of him, which has been great. But yeah, man, I feel really, really good about LeVert. The only thing that I question at this point in time, and maybe you can help me out with this a little bit, he's routinely playing 30 plus minutes off the bench right now. Is that sustainable? Does that scare you at all?
I think that's kind of a byproduct of a couple things. I think it's a byproduct of Ty Jerome being hurt and Isaac Okoro being hurt. And then when those guys weren't hurt, Darius was hurt. And sometimes Donnie was hurt. I do think he is playing well enough to warrant 26 to 28 minutes a night. So right now, and I do think JB has some levers to pull to get that number back down. If he starts playing less well, I don't think the road to getting him back to, 24 to 26 is that hard. You just give Ice a few more minutes here and there. All the starters are playing like 33 to 34 minutes most games. So like, it's not like if they had to go up to 36 a little more often. That's not the end of the world. So, I'm not worried about the minutes load. And again, I'm just so darn impressed with his decisiveness right now. He just is a player who seems very comfortable attacking. He's turning the corner on opponents a lot better. I do think he's one of these guys that when we talked about benefiting from the improved spacing, we really narrowed in on him because he's a player who does like to dribble a lot. And when you're playing when you're in a phone booth, that gets really, really hard to turn the corner when you're doing it mostly off the dribble. But, you look at that switch he got on Kevon Looney today where he just cooked him for a reverse layup and one. Like,
that was beautiful.
I just don't think he was getting past guys that way last year. And I don't think it has that much to do with Caris. It has a lot to do with the environment Caris was in last season where, because like the reality is last season, if Caris was on the floor and ISOing, it probably meant one of Darius or Donovan was sitting, and it probably meant that there was only one shooter on the floor. So, like I've been so impressed by his attacks. His free throw drawing has been really, really good. He didn't have any free throws the first 2 games of the year. Then he's put up 9, 4, 4, 2, 16, and 5 free throw attempts, and like 5 free throw attempts isn't an insane amount. I understand that, but like I felt like all 5 were high value attempts. They were like and one opportunities or like really forcing the contact. And then on the defensive end, I think he's been really, really good. I mean, he's always been a good active hands steals guy. I think he's been sitting his stance a lot better this season in isolation. I don't think he'll ever be an elite off-ball defender, but like I just think he's doing his job, especially when the team doesn't have Okoro out there. So, man, I just never expected to like this guy so much. I spent the entirety of last season, using the square peg round hole analogy. I never remember which order that goes in, but don't worry about it. Of saying like, hey, I respect the guy, useful player, has a lot of skills, but this team doesn't really need what he provides. Feels like this year, this team does need what he provides, and he just fits way better within this roster construction.
I don't think anybody could beat you up about that opinion, though, obviously last year, just because it often felt like they tried him out at so many different spots, right? And you kind of love the fact that he's so versatile, but I feel like obviously the added spacing definitely helps, but I feel like having a solidified role now actually helps as well. Like, he knows where his minutes are going to come from. You can spot start him when you need him to, but I feel like he's playing confident basketball because he knows what his job is out there. I've been really impressed with his two-way play. I think the lockdown defense on Klay Thompson, for me, the man-to-man right there, even though Klay's lost a step, and I don't feel bad saying that, that was absolutely beautiful. I love that. So he's getting it done on both ends of the floor. And I think right now he has legitimately, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just the way I feel. I feel like he is one of the Cavs' probably top 5 most important players, just for the level of versatility that he offers.
I'm not sure I'm there yet. I mean, I just think the starting 5 is the 5 for me right now. Because just Strus has been so important for them, and I do feel like the reason I won't put him in there, even though I think he's probably 6th, the reason I won't put him in there is I still feel like the team's ceiling is defined by what that starting 5 can do.
That's fair.
And I feel like this team is now good enough that we can focus on the ceiling. But I think the fact that Caris has been good enough to, insert himself into that conversation, I think is a real testament to him. It sure is making the Cavs look good for not letting him walk this summer. His versatility is I feel like what makes him so special for this team, which is funny because I just wouldn't have considered him to be that kind of versatile piece coming in. I kind of viewed him as a straight up scorer for the majority of his career, but wherever they've needed support from him, he's able to support, just like we get support from our video software. Support for this podcast, the following message come from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects. I want to talk about the bigs next, Mac. And I want to start with a bit of an Evan Mobley offensive referendum, because me thinks the narrative is swinging too far the other direction with him. Every game, my timeline is littered with complaints about Evan Mobley. And in fairness, midway through the third, I'm like, Evan's not having a very good game. And
is it the variance, like the back and forth of it all?
I don't know, but I'm sitting here thinking, he's had a bit of a rough game. I get why people are complaining. Then I look at the box score. It's 19 points on 10 field goal attempts. Like, if that's a rough game, cool. Like, do you feel like it's swung a little too far with him? I understand that the self-created stuff is not there, but like, I just don't know how much that really matters as long as he's able to succeed when he has advantage.
I mean, I honestly do believe it's like the guy takes strays all the time, even in, what the box score, which suggests isn't actually like a very efficient, good game from Mobley. I don't know what people are expecting. Like, I say this all the live long day, the acquisition of Donovan Mitchell, right? It's a great thing. But what it did was it altered the trajectory of his development. It forever changed how his development arc was going to go. And even while we may not have seen some of the developments that some people are really, really clamoring for, like the 3-point shot, right? Or a solid mid-range jumper, things of that nature, the self-created stuff, as you said, even though we haven't seen that stuff come with consistency, he's still finding ways to get the job done offensively, right? He's great. He's usually money around the rim. He's rebounding the basketball pretty well. He's still giving you that trademark defensive player of the year caliber defense. But on the offensive end specifically, I just don't get people's, like, I don't get it. Like, we go from one game, the guy looks dominant, to the next game, the guy sucks.
I mean, get it. Here's the thing. I get it. Because you do want to see, and we talked about it on the last podcast where, you're seeing him not go for the floater range shots. He's not going up as confidently from mid range. There are some spots where you can go, that's actually like he's doing that less, or he's less confident doing that than he was as a rookie, which you don't want to see. So like, I won't say I don't get it. And I also think the way that the team talks about him kind of begs these kind of expectations from folks. I just think I keep going back to, I've already referenced it on the pod before, but Nekias Duncan on the low post talking about Anthony Davis, about what people want from him and expect from him. And if you're looking for, 25 to 30 points of self-created points a game, you're just going to be bummed out. But you just reframe your expectations a little. I care a lot more about Evan's play finishing and the way he's attacking with advantage than I do about how he can post up Draymond Green from the elbow. Like that's all well and good, but like right now, I just want to see him make the right play. That's why on the last podcast I talked about the force that Jared Allen plays with, the decisiveness Jared Allen plays with, and the fact that Jared's been getting to the line a ton these last 2 games. Just by the second he catches it, he just goes straight at the rim as hard as he can. Someone in our Discord, DH, mentioned, he framed it really perfectly where he said, I think Evan Mobley right now is cursed with too many options. Like, he's got so many things he's working on that you can see the brain processing in real time. And like, I would almost like to see him just go back to instinctual play on the offensive end. And I do think that would kind of ease a lot of these concerns. And I think that's why people are bummed, because we're seeing you try stuff and it's not going well.
Well, let me ask you this then, because I've seen a lot of these things being mentioned on both sides. From just a decision-making standpoint, especially upon receiving the ball, do you feel like he has regressed between now and last season?
I don't think he's regressed. I think the shot diet is a little different. And he actually he tried a floater tonight, and I was really pleased with that because I just hadn't been seeing a lot of those shots from him. And I think that should be a bread and butter shot for him. I think he has got really good touch from floater range. I just think that the expectations are higher And I think he's about the same, to be honest. I don't think but like, again, this is a little bit of confirmation bias too, because Justin and I very strongly feel he is a power forward, not a center. And there was a lot of games at center against really, really good defensive centers that I'm like, yeah, I don't think Evan's going to do well in those matchups. Like,
well, and they faced a lot of matchups in which guys can pull you out, right? If you're putting Mobley at the 5 and you're having to defend Chet, a guy like that out there who can comfortably space the floor, that changes things a little bit with if you're moving him to the 5, because I've always felt like I too agree that I feel like he's more a 4 than a 5, although you can get away with minutes at the 5 for him. I feel like right now he is by far the best position for him is the 4, and what is required from him, especially from a defensive standpoint, when you have Jared Allen out there, is much different than what you might be requiring him to do out of that 5. And so I don't know. I just, it's all over the place for me, but I kind of feel like he's still at the same place that he was last year. And I consistently see people suggesting that the guy has regressed. And that's the part I can't get with.
No, I think he's about where he was last year as a scorer. I think his playmaking has been improved, but though, that's the thing. There's just now that you never get a straight line with basketball. Like, I think, is the playmaking better, or is the court more open and he's able to, make easier reads to guys who are better shooters? It's hard to say on that front, but I've liked what I've seen there. Up until the last 2 games, I've loved what I've seen on the glass. I mean, he had a 5-game stretch where he had 15, 14, 12, 10, 16 boards. Now, the last 2 he's only had 5 apiece, which I think is
that concerning to you at all?
Him
And Jared.
I wouldn't say concerning. I feel like both of the last 2 games have been a little weird on the boards, where like you kind of just look up and down the box score and no one has like more than 6 or 7. And it just kind of feels like gang rebounding games. I thought they were okay on the boards against OKC. I thought they were a little worse against Golden State, but I also think that's just a Golden State byproduct because you're just so panicked by the shooting. Like, they're always going to be a good offensive rebounding team because they have Kevon Looney and they have two shooters that make you fly 30 feet from the ball on pick and roll and pin down and split cut action. So, like, I just think I'm not worried about like a regression for him on the boards. I still think he's been a much better rebounder writ large. I just think he's also sharing the court with Jared Allen again, which that takes up some boards. And overall, I've been fine. I've been fine with him. I think I will say my honest opinion of Evan so far this year is I'm a little disappointed, but not. It's more of a Larry David. Like I can't feel as bummed as everyone else is, because like I think it's a bit more of a flat progression, like you said, as opposed to a straight regression. One spot where there has been a certain regression year over year, and I think we do have to talk about it a little bit, is the Niang thing. George has had a rough run so far as a Cleveland Cavalier.
That's putting it lightly.
And I'm not sure why. Like these are, it's, when you're trying to analyze it, you go, okay, is it a situation thing? But he's played on spaced offenses that Donovan Mitchell is the lead ball handler on and done really, really well. So like, what's missing? What, in your opinion, is the cause? Do you think it's just a straight up a comfort issue? Do you think it's if he just, he's just a little cold right now and he needs to be hot to be helpful? Like, how do you feel?
How I feel? Okay, let me just put this in 2 ways here. First, with the offense, shooting 27% from 3-point range. That is not what we expected, right? Especially coming off of 5 straight seasons in which he's knocked down the 3 ball 40+% in each. I honestly feel, Carter, that it is comfort. Some of the shots that he's taken, the shot profile, this guy literally will run out in transition and pull up. That just does not seem like a shot to me that it is within his wheelhouse. The other thing that I absolutely hate from Niang right now, I got to keep it real. I hate when he drives the basketball. It scares me each time he does it. I know it's probably going to result in a miss, but specifically in regards to the space, right? I feel like it's a comfort thing because the shot, I feel like if you can get him out there as a spot up shooter, he would be way, way, way more efficient. I just haven't seen a ton of those looks. Maybe it's the result of like the people that have been missing, the injuries, guys playing out of position and whatnot. But I mean, I'm just as concerned as everybody else. I do not believe it's just the shooting slump at this point. I really honestly feel like it is a comfort thing. I feel like the shot profile with him, they're not getting him shots, in my opinion, that he's most comfortable with. I don't know. That's just me. Where are you at with that?
I was really hopeful that the return of Darius and Jarrett would be kind of a shot in the arm for him, because I do think those are two guys that are kind of built in a lab to make things easier on a guy like Niang. Like, again, Jarrett's vertical rim pressure really sucking defenders in, making them take that extra step. Like, Evan likes to catch in the high post and jab and pivot. Like, Jarrett just goes. And, for a spot up guy, that's great for a guy like that. You're looking for Darius. Darius is a guy who's going to hit it in the shooter's pocket a little more consistently, where you're not catching at your knees and having to get into a set shot. It still isn't there right now. The 3-point volume is his lowest since 2019. He's only taken 7.3 per 36. You hope that comes up a little bit just now that the team is healthy and he has a little bit more space. And you just kind of hope that the percentages just level out. I mean, he was missing bad tonight. And like, when a really good 3-point shooter is missing that badly, he's at 27% for the season right now from 3. And honestly, I'm surprised it's that high.
It don't feel like it's that high.
Then I think it's one of those things where you have to kind of balance how much you can ride it out, versus how much you just need to like play guys like Dean Wade more minutes ahead of him. Because Dean, I think, if you're going to get 27% from the 4, you might as well play Dean. Even if Dean's jumper is hit and miss because of the other things he brings. In fairness, I will say he has helped in some other spots. I think when he is ISO'd when he's guarding big, strong 4s, I think he's done pretty well.
Julius Randle.
I thought he did a really nice job on him. The rebounding is the best it's been since 2018. He's averaging 7 boards per 36, which is like a lot better than anything he's done the last 4 or 5 years. The only other times he was rebounding that well was when he was playing 9-10 games a year early in his career. So I think that I've been pleased with that. The turnover, he's not turning the ball over. That's nice, but like, the reality is you gotta hit shots if you're him, because you're not going to be an elite defender. You're not going to be an elite rebounder. You're not going to be an elite playmaker. So it's like, we just need you to get him up, and we need you to get him up and make him go in. And like, that's like the worst analysis. I understand that. That's not sexy. That's not fun. But to your point about the drives, like, it's one of those things too, where even when you're in a slump, you just are not allowed to stop taking them if you're him. Like, there was a play where he was running pick and pop with Darius when Saric was out there tonight, and they run it twice. They run 2 picks for him. First one doesn't really yield anything. Second one, he's wide open. Darius drags Saric that extra step. He catches it, and he pumps and drives, gets stonewalled, has to give it back to Darius. Darius ends up having to make a cross court pass to Strus in the corner, and Strus mishandles it into a turnover. And it's like, you have to shoot it when you're open.
Issue?
I don't know.
I
don't know, because you could point at Darius for the same thing, where it's like, hey, like, if you're open, you just have to shoot. But like, I don't feel like Niang is a guy who lacks for confidence based on what you hear about him. But like, at a certain point, you just like, I'm sure even he needs to see him go in. So like, I'm not ready to say like total disaster, but like, the minutes have not been good. They have not been good for him. I would imagine Niang would tell you that himself. And I don't know. Maybe it's just a matter of getting used to his teammates, but like, or getting used to. There is maybe something, and this is pure speculation that I'm coming up with on the spot. Maybe there's something to he got very comfortable in Philly where you just don't have to move to get open threes with Joel Embiid. In fact, you're probably better served just standing in that corner and waiting for, like, because you
a kick out.
Yeah, because the thing about Embiid and playing next to a guy like that is you can generate doubles from a set offense without having already, garnered an advantage. Every other, perimeter player, you have to like run an action for them to then, trap you or send help after you've beaten your man. Like Embiid, if he catches it on the block, someone's probably coming. So maybe maybe he didn't have to be didn't have to move as much, and it was a bit more of just hang in the corner and it will come to me and I will be ready. So maybe there's an adjustment period going on there, but like I don't know.
Do you think he's adding enough like in other areas to continue to warrant the minutes that he's getting? I think that's the biggest question.
I think it's probably a good thing for him that like Ice and Jerome are hurt right now. Obviously not a good thing now, like something he would be rooting for. But in terms of he it's buying him some more, like there's nowhere else for JB to give the minutes to right now. Like,
well, let me ask you this then, just because we keep seeing it suggested, my friend. Can you explain to people why you don't play a guy like Emoni Bates there? Just because that's where a lot of people seem to be pointing his minutes should be going to.
I just think that's this is probably a mean way to frame it, but I think that's a decision you make if you think you're going to win like 35 games. Because I know that the hype train for Emoni is off the rails, and internally my hype train for Emoni is going a little off the rails after his G League debut. But you still look at a guy like that, and like I think I don't want to accuse our viewers of not being knowers of ball, but if you are a true knower of basketball and you really pay attention to what Emoni is doing, on off ball, on defense, chasing guys around screens, I think in your heart of hearts you have to know he's going to get attacked in a postseason series, and he's just too young to have the counters yet. And a guy like George Niang has helped teams win playoff series. And like I think if it were next year, I think that conversation I'm a lot more open to right now. Mm-hmm. But like for this very moment, I just think Emoni is better served getting a ton of minutes in the G League, not scrapping for 7 or 8 minutes here and there because George isn't hitting threes. Because again, once the team's fully healthy, he's not going to get minutes anyway, even if George is barely in the rotation. Because a guy like Okoro is going to play ahead of him. A guy like Wade is going to play ahead of him. Because you just have to understand how NBA defense works. And what the team really needs, especially on that end of the ball. Like, this team has a lot of catch and shoot guys now. They have plenty of that skill set in spades. They haven't been hitting them, but they have the archetypes. They don't have a lot of rugged defender and box out guys like Dean Wade. And Isaac Okoro. So I just think you're not really. It's weird because obviously you would think playing Emoni is playing the long game. I don't think you're actually playing the long game there. I think you're short circuiting a little bit in chasing some instant gratification. And you'd be better served by just saying, Emoni, we'll play it. We'll see you when we see you. We'll get you minutes when we can or when we have to. But right now, we're better served getting George back up to speed and in the swing of things.
Must be rough to have that game with the charge and then immediately have to fly up for the big league club, and then I think fly back for another charge game. That's got to be tough.
That's rough, but I think I'm glad you brought it up because I think it's smart as hell management from the Cavs coaching staff. That is saying, hey, we want you in our system all the time. No off days for you, buddy. You're with us. We're going to keep developing you. We're going to keep teaching you. We're going to run you a little ragged this year going back and forth, but you're going to be better served for it because you're getting big league experience and big league time, hanging out with guys that shoot around, picking their brains, the little things like that, and you're getting game reps. And like, I think that level of hands-on management is the kind of thing he both needs and deserves in terms of being taken as a developmental prospect by this team.
Absolutely.
By the way, do you agree with me? We didn't get to your opinion on the matter. Would you give Emoni minutes?
Well, thank you for asking. I feel like I don't get asked my opinion a lot because I'm talking to myself most of the time on my podcast. No, I completely agree with you. Just because I get the hype surrounding. I'm guilty of hyping the guy up. I mean, I love to see the kid do well, and I feel like I can call him a kid just because I'm in my 30s.
Yeah,
now.
we're old. We can call them kids.
But yes, I completely agree because I feel like you're not really getting the best out of his two-way eligibility if you're just going to have him up with the big league club as like maybe 9th, 10th man at best, seeing maybe like 5 to 10 minutes per night at the big league level. You're not really helping his development along. What you really want from for Emoni is to play him where he's going to get his most minutes, where he can see his most development. And we've seen how that can pay off for guys in the past with the G League. There, and speaking of that game the other night, there's a number of players who looked really, really good, but yet none of them outside of Emoni were getting looks from fans about actually playing. Isaiah Mobley comes to mind. You had a wonderful game against the Herd, but I didn't see nearly enough people commenting on that. But
yeah,
overall,
but the cult of Emoni is going to do what the cult of Emoni does, and that's fun. It's part of the fun, by the way. Like I know we're playing the part of being like the rational, like hyper, long game patient folks. Like both of us, like every time Emoni checks in, I would argue we're both pretty geeked to see what's going to happen. Just
even if it's 1 minute left.
Yeah, because the upside,
if it's 1 minute,
dude, totally. The upside is there. So like, I really do get it. I get why people are hyped and want to see him. I just think like really, really put yourself in JB's shoes. If you're one of those like, it's malpractice, he's not on the main roster and in the rotation, like really put yourself in JB's shoes. Really think about what this team's goals are and realize that like I would play it exactly the way JB is playing it. So like I can't criticize.
I mean, I can't either, but Carter, we have to understand that.
But people are gonna.
Like,
people are gonna.
Yeah, the average fan is like, man, what the hell is JB doing? This kid should be playing right now. He's a superstar. He's a starter. People are just saying all types of things.
How about this? House rules. You're not allowed to cite charge box scores as reasons why he must be with the main club unless you watched every minute of his play on the floor. Because anyone looks great with a highlight reel, and he was great. He was great in that game. That is not to denigrate Emoni's performance at all. I just really like what they're doing, and I wouldn't short circuit it unless I really had to, or he was so consistently great that I didn't have the choice, that I had to. Like that's kind of where I stand. But like ultimately, it's a really, really exciting time, and I'm going to be watching a lot of Charge games this year, man. I really had a lot of fun watching that game. And, once CPJ gets down there, and that guy's going to be spending some time at the free throw line, I would surmise, tonight. But, once CPJ gets down there, it's just going to be fun. There's just so many guys that you actually know and have some investment with that group. So it's going to be a really fun time watching the Charge this year, I think.
It really should be, yeah.
So anyway, it is 12:57 p.m. Eastern time. We got 118 sickos staying up late to watch this stream and hang out with the Chase Down and with its Cavalier. Thank you so much, Mack, for joining. Please, before we wrap, can you go ahead and plug your stuff, because your YouTube channel has been popping, your podcast feed's been popping. Go ahead and tell us what's going on.
Well, I appreciate the shout out. Just hit 10K rather recently. I'm trying to put out content daily, although that's a struggle.
It's hard work, man. You've been killing it.
Yeah, post gaming, doing my best to provide insight and reaction there. But yeah, I mean, go ahead, check out the It's Cavalier podcast. Go subscribe on YouTube. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, Mac is going live after like almost every game, which certainly the Chase Down does not do. So if you're thirsting for some post game content, please go check out It's Cavalier. And if you are a Chase Down podcast fan, thank you so much for your continued patronage, for listening. We got a few folks sending 5-star reviews for invites to the Discord, so please do so. Send a review to chasedownpod@gmail.com and we'll get you an invite. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe. Be sure to cook those books. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, go Cavs. We'll see you soon, Justin.